Presiding Officer. Let me just start by gently saying to the absent Neil Findlay that it's not helpful to suggest that anyone here would describe our friends and neighbours south of the border as nasty people. My English relatives and my relatives in England remain my friends, however they may have voted on whatever subject. Indeed, my American relatives and friends also remain friends. He devalues and contaminates his broader arguments by such intemperate language. Now, we've heard from almost everybody on those benches, and indeed from Jackie Baillie, numbers about Scotland's exports to England. Let's just examine where these numbers come from and what credibility we should place on them. And let me start with a paper produced by the previous Labour Liberal executive in 2005, which says, in relation to these numbers, the main difficulty arises because taxes are collected at UK level, and since Scotland is a region, the requirement for companies to report financial information at sub-UK level isn't there. And it goes on to say the Global Connections survey is difficult for practical and conceptual reasons. It's difficult to say where things are exported. Well, let me continue, I may, if time permits. Let me continue and go to 2013 and look at the paper that the UK government produced in the run-up to the referendum in 2014. That's Scotland Analysis, Business and Macroeconomic Framework. And indeed, that quotes the £45.5 billion. I'm prepared to agree, by the way, the figure has probably got 11 digits in it. That's probably correct. But if you look one paragraph down, there's a neat little footnote says it may be 35.651 million, lower than the estimate produced in Scotland's Global Connection survey. And I have another 4 to do before I get there. And that is precisely illustrating the imprecision about the way in which we produce the figures. Now, more, if time permits. Looking at the export statistics for 2014 produced by statisticians in Scotland, it interestingly provides something that perhaps illustrates where some of the difficulties may arise. It points out that the Netherlands is our second biggest export market and the biggest in the EU. And of course, that seems rather surprising. It has a footnote that says, Netherlands and Belgium consistently reported as our top trading partners. However, these countries contain key ports where many of our exports are exported. They go on and deal with the HMRC, regional exports of goods figures. And here it gets really, really interesting, because when you look at the figures, there is, in the figures for the UK, the various countries of the UK, there is an, quote, unknown region, which exported £37.3 billion. Now, that's quite interesting, because if that were to be attributed to Scotland, of course, then our exports beyond the UK exceed those, the 45 plus billion that are represented. And would it be likely that that's the case? Well, actually, it could be quite likely, because that is the oil region. And it's only by omitting oil that you get the result that you do. Now, let's just talk about the business of ports, and I'm now out of time. And it actually is something called the Rotterdam effect. The Rotterdam effect, I have a paper, it's so pervasive that it's part of the A-level syllabus in England and Wales. And I have a study note here about the Rotterdam effect. And it is about how the export is booked at the last point it touches the ground. And given that Scotland doesn't have many ports equivalent to Felixstowe, to Zeebrugge, or to Rotterdam, most of our exports touch the ground and are counted somewhere else. So I think, Presiding Officer, we need to be very cautious about these numbers. By the way, I don't say they're wrong. I just cannot possibly, on the basis of the evidence that's before us, say that they're right. And there is evidence that suggests they may be actually the other way up from what we're saying. Presiding Officer, it's been an absolute delight to have the audience listen to me here. I hope we'll talk about more numbers as the debate progresses. Presiding Officer.